Have you ever been bamboozled by good looks, flashy clothes, or a large bank account, only to find yourself in a situation just as bad, if not worse, than your last toxic relationship? Well, in this video, we are going to unpack the Cam Newton and Lady London interview so that you can learn how to identify a low vibrational man by using Cam Newton as Exhibit A. Now, in my lifetime, I have kissed many frogs, okay? Yet I pride myself on learning from each situation. Now, each frog may have been an upgrade from the previous, but if I was viewing them from healed eyes, I would have been able to see the red flags on the first encounter. Now, if you want to read about all of my frogs and the lessons that I learned from each of them, then go ahead and click the link in the description and get your copy of A Hypocrite's Diary. Now, these are the three main qualities that all low vibrational men possess, no matter how much money they're making. Now, if you pay attention to this video, you'll be able to spot out the red flags in any man on your first encounter. Now, the first quality is they must be glorified. Everything must be about them. Characteristic number 2, they are rarely, if ever, wrong. And characteristic number 3 is they lack accountability and they lie easily. Now, I have done my due diligence and I have watched this interview multiple times, okay? And I even took some notes because I wanted to make sure I wrote down each moment in this interview that helps you to identify the low vibrational nature of Cam Newton, which will be reflected in any man that you encounter. So let's get started. Okay. As the interview begins, Cam is giving his introduction, introducing Lady London, giving her accolades, just talking about who she is as a person. And the first thing that he said, because he must be glorified, he mentioned the word satire. And he said that it was a SAT word. Now, if you're just meeting somebody for the first time and you're on your first date, you might think, okay, he's trying to be funny. He know I'm a lyricist. He know I like words. He just trying to show he got a little bit of intellect. Right? That's what you might think on the surface. But we going to go a little bit deeper because everything has a deeper meaning to it. That's why I'm the shadow specialist. Now, this is her introduction. This is him introducing his guest. Yet he felt the need to point out that it was a SAT word that he was using and told the audience to look it up. So what did I hear? I heard, okay, you have the vocabulary of a high school graduate. That's fine. But why did you need to even make a statement referring somehow back to you in the introduction of your guest? Because you're low vibrational, you must be glorified. Somehow in the introduction about someone else, you had to make it about you. Right? So as the conversation is, moving right along, this is like within the first 10 minutes, Lady London says, I feel everything deeply. I'm very emotional. I'm a Cancer. She referenced her zodiac sign that lumped her into a category with other people. Now, for a low vibrational individual, they must be glorified. They cannot be lumped into any type of categories that they don't want to subscribe to. So she asked him, "What's your sign?" His response was, "I'm a god." Okay. The God I serve say I'm a reflection of him. So she then tries to circumvent the question and say, okay, so when's your birthday? Because you tell me when your birthday is, and then I'll go ahead and, decipher what that means for your zodiac sign, right? Because we're starting off the conversation, the interview with you, throwing out things that I'm not asking. Just answer my question, sir. When's your birthday? Every day's my birthday. Now, this is quite the egotistical logical answer, because we all know that we celebrate our day of birth. Most of us, majority of us, celebrate our day of birth one day a year, or at least acknowledge it one day a year. Okay. He didn't want to answer that because things must be about him. You're hijacking the interview by drawing out a question that had a very simple answer. Now, he's been on this planet 36 years because he's a year older than me. So I know he knows that he's a Taurus. And I know he could have answered that very simply, but remember, low vibrational individuals must be glorified. Everything has to be about them. So then she says, okay, when's your birthday? He says, May 11th, 1989. I was born on a Sunday, Mother's Day. I'm my mother's favorite son, even though she's never said it. I believe that to be true. Once again, now in this one, he had all three of them operating. He had to be glorified. You gave your birthday. Then you lied easily and said, I was born on a Sunday. Now, in the Hypocrite's Diary, I talk about my high school sweetheart whose birthday was also May 11th. But it's very easy for someone to Google May 11th, 1989 and find out that, sir, you in fact were not born on a Sunday. Now, does your birthday fall on a Sunday every few years? Yes, it does. Does it fall on Mother's Day when it does fall on a Sunday every few years? Yes, it does. But the year that you were born was not a Sunday. May 11th, 1989 was a Thursday. But he had to be glorified yet again, even though, because he finally gave an answer to a question that lumped him into a category in her mind that he didn't want to be in because he's a god. He had to distinguish himself in some way by saying that I was born on a Sunday, which he was not. Okay. He then further goes on to say, my mom had a powerful vagina. Very cringe type of statement. Why? Why did his mother have a powerful vagina? And why is her womb even important in reference to the question at hand? You've already answered it. Let's move on to interviewing Lady London. You've answered her question. Let's move on. But no, we can't do that because I must be glorified. In some way, somehow, this must be about me. And I had to have come from a woman with a powerful vagina because she had me. Now, why is he representing his mother vagina as being powerful? Because she had 3 sons. Wow. Now, if you're new here, let me explain what that means. When a woman has a son, it's because her heart space energetically is yearning for more love. Okay. So the first son could have been born out of a need for her mother to feel more love that she did not receive from her father. Or it could have been a combination of the love that she wasn't receiving from her current husband. But Cam Newton is the second born. He's the middle child. So that is indicative that his mother was not receiving the love that she desired and yearned for from her husband because she bore yet another son. But wait, there's more. Throughout the duration of her marriage to her current husband, she had another son, the baby son, which lets me know that throughout the marriage, the wounds of her energetic, emotional heart space was not being nurtured, cared for, and tended to the way it needed to be by her husband. Otherwise, she wouldn't have kept attracting sons into her womb which was supposed to give her the love that she was yearning for and was not receiving or able to give herself. So was it powerful or was it wounded? I don't know. We're not here to talk about your mother's wound. We're here to be interviewing Lady London. But since you mentioned it, I thought I would just give you guys that tidbit too. Now, in the same breath, one question has been asked by Lady London. When is your birthday? Because he failed to answer the question of what's your sign? So then he continues to go on and glorify himself even more by saying, I would have been slapped for that comment because I was raised in a church home. I was raised in a loving family. Once again, this has nothing to do with your sign. You've already answered the question. We should have moved on minutes ago. We're now about 10, 12 minutes into the interview, and you're still talking about your childhood, your upbringing, your mother's womb, all in relation to you, Cam Newton. If the loving home was so loving, why do you have such a fear of matrimony? But we're not going to get into that in this video. We're going to simply only identify the low vibrational answers that he gave. Okay? Now, as the interview continued, Lady London asked the question that broke the internet. She wanted to know what inspires your fashion, right? You have such an interesting look to you. What inspires your fashion? His response initially is, I hate when I see two people wearing the same pieces. Now, what I heard is, I don't have the confidence to wear the same outfit as someone else in a different way. So I'm going to say I hate to see two people wearing the same thing. Although I'm wearing a polo shirt that's mass produced, there's nothing originally crafted about your outfit at all. The way you put it together wouldn't have been put together by a blind man, in my opinion. But there's nothing customized about your attire at all. So you are, in fact, wearing a piece that someone else has in their closet, but they would not put it together the same way you did. And that is what we call style, ladies and gentlemen. Someone taking an outfit and making it their own. Having the same piece on as someone else, or not wanting to wear the same pieces as someone else, but yet not having customized outfits is crazy. It's like insane. But they must be glorified. They can't be like the rest. They can't be, lumped into generalized categories, right? He then goes on to say, I don't follow trends. Okay, I can appreciate that. I'm not a trendy girl myself, typically because the things that are trendy just aren't my style. You will never see me standing out in the cold waiting for the new Jordans to drop. I could care less about the Valentine's Day Air Force Ones, and that's just not my style. I could care less about that. But I digress, to each his own. You don't have to be a trendy person to have style. He then goes on to say, in the same breath, because the question was, you know, what influences your style? Explain your style. He says, I'm a businessman and I do not play about my empire. That's a root chakra question, talking about your money and your empire and your foundation. The question that Lady London asked was about your style, your creativity, your sacral chakra, and yet you still haven't answered the question. He then further goes on to say, when a person, place, or thing, that's a noun, challenges his empire, then he has to control, alt, delete himself. So now he wants you to know and glorify his education so that we understand he knows the keys on a keyboard. But we still haven't gotten the question to what is the inspiration to your style. So Lady London followed up. Oh, but wait, there's a little bit more. He said, there's a little self expression. I find my style to be a form of self expression. But here's a quality that not all low vibrational men have, but he does. In order to glorify himself, he must put someone else down. And he did that by saying, most people feel they have style because they wear labels or they're rocking urban wear. And his guest at the time is sitting across from him with the Balenciaga jacket on and some Adidas red shoe pants. I don't know how to describe it better than that. So you're subliminally attacking your guest by mentioning two things. She has on urban wear. She's rocking it in an urban way. But because you have still not clearly defined what influences your style, you felt the need to attack others. Very low vibrational, right? And so, because the question still had not been answered, Lady London then came back and said, describe your word, your style in one word that's an adjective. Because now we throwing out, satire and nouns. So let's sum this up. Let's sum up your style with one word that's an adjective. And this is what broke the internet. Because he really showed that he couldn't be wrong, right? He then says, well, can I use a word that I've used before? And I'm pretty sure that she didn't catch the mispronunciation of eclectic earlier in the conversation. But he then goes on to say eclectic. And she's like, wait, what? Say that again? Eclectic. And why on earth would she correct him? She said, no, it's eclectic. There's no N in that. Now, this triggered the fuck out of Cam Newton, right? Because you're now telling me that I was wrong and you're correcting me, so I can never be wrong. I'm never wrong, and I must glorify myself. And I'm going to lie and say that heavy on the N because it's my word. Heavy on the N. And she's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. You done created you a word? Okay, so how you spell this word? Because you gonna go with it, I'm gonna go with it. How you spell this word? He then proceeds to misspell the word that he made up. Necleta. Anybody who got half a brain knows that that's eclecta, not eclectic. So now you've created your own word. You misspelled it because one, you have to glorify yourself. It's your word. Okay. You don't have to subscribe to the dictionary word or how they spell it or even pronounce it. This is my word. All right. And not only is it my word, not only am I going to glorify myself by saying this is my word, I'm not wrong. And it does have an N in it. And it is spelt with the A at the end and not a IC at the end. Lying because you do not want to take accountability. It would have been very easy to say, oh, a high vibrational man, a man that's not operating from his high root chakra, low sacral chakra, would have said, oh, I've been pronouncing that word wrong my whole life. Thank you, educated Black woman that's that I'm interviewing. Thank you for helping me not make a fool of myself in the future. But no, 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 no. Low vibrational men are going to justify, they're going to glorify themselves. They're never going to take accountability, so they're going to lie easily. Okay? And that's what he did. So then he even goes on to say, so she's like, okay, so you done made up this word and we gonna roll with it because this is your show and I'm on your platform. So, should we hit up Oxford, Webster, put your word in the dictionary so people can start using, your word? Once again, now he's feeling challenged. Now he's feeling like, okay, you trying to embarrass me even further by saying, let's put this word that doesn't exist in the dictionary. So I'm going to say I don't need to subscribe to the English language that I use every single day. He then goes on to say, why should we hit them up? They don't, they don't, what do you say? They don't eat. What do you say? I wrote it down. They don't eat what I eat at Thanksgiving. Cam, what the fuck does this have to do with your word? They have coined the English language and created definitions to every single word that we use on a daily basis. So since you created a word, maybe you should have them, added to the dictionary. But instead, you're going to mention that they don't eat what you eat at Thanksgiving? You're once again glorifying yourself. What does it matter what you eat at Thanksgiving, Cam? And who knows, the founders of Thanksgiving could have been ancestors of Webster and Oxford, whoever they are. But okay, at the end of the day, it's your show, your word, your world. You're lying to avoid accountability that you simply could have said, I didn't know that that's how you pronounce that word. Thank you for helping me out, sister. I appreciate you. Seeing as how you're extremely educated. But, I digress. So he finally, after he's made a complete ass of himself that many clips have circled around the internet, after he's made a complete fool of himself, he then actually starts interviewing his guests and starts mentioning the upcoming projects that will be released on Tubi, her docuseries, started talking about her EP and even asked her, like, does your education influence your lyricism? Is that like your secret weapon? And she tells him, like, I just come from slick talking, a family of slick talkers. Yeah, I'm sure my education helps me out a bit, but I just do this. This is what I do. Okay. So he wants to know, okay, well then who influences you? Who inspires you? She gets to naming off her, inspiration as an artist, Slick Rick, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, start talking about people that came before her. And Cam is like, okay, well, these people are like 2 generations before us. Do you have anybody present day, that you listen to? And she was like, well, you asked me who inspires me, and I'm inspired by those that come before me, not those that stand beside me. And wow, punched his ego again. And he can't be wrong. So what does he say? He's like, well, if you really heard the question was, who do you listen to? And she was like, you clearly asked me who I was inspired by, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm gonna just take that one too, because I can't win for losing with you right now. And he was like, you probably right. A little accountability. He showed a little accountability, but not much, because he said probably. Not you're right. No, you probably right. I ain't even gonna give you the whole, justification of being completely right, even though I know that wasn't the question that you asked me. So she even said, like, I know you tried to bait me. Now, Most sixth graders know what bait is. And she even gave the fishing analogy. Bait is what you put on the fishing rod to reel in a fish. And he was like, oh, use it in a sentence. Because once again, he want to challenge her intellect, even though his doesn't measure up at all. Why you keep challenging this lady, Cam? Because you want to be glorified. Okay, you can never be wrong. I didn't bait you. You just didn't listen to the question. And she even said, you tried to bait me into answering a question you did not ask. Check. That's exactly what he did. And he know that that's what he did. But, he just had to call her out on it to see if she was able to articulate her thoughts as if she hadn't been doing that the entire half-ass interview that he was giving. Right? So since they were on the subject of, education and her degrees, he mentioned that he has a degree in horticulture and even defined what horticulture is. It's the study of plants. Most people don't know he has a associate's degree in horticulture and that he pursued that degree to help his father out, who had a lawn care service at the time. Okay, I applaud that. Thank you for educating, the general public, because most people don't know what horticulture is, you know? But then he goes on to say, his second degree from Auburn University. And I just find it so funny that this is coming full circle because Cam Newton is only a year older than me. And while he was attending Auburn University, obtaining his sociology degree, I was 20 minutes down the road at the illustrious Tuskegee University, obtaining my bachelor's in biology. So, me and Lady Linda got a little bit in common with our science background, right? Even the founder of Hampton and Tuskegee, they were friends. But that's another conversation for a different day. You know. So then he goes on to say he received his degree in sociology, and that sociology is the study of people. And she just chuckled in her head and rolled her eyes like, yeah, I know what sociology is. I understand, the dichotomy of words, how the etymology of words. Sociology is the study of peoples, the society. And yeah, anyway. So she kind of chuckled and rolled her eyes at that, like, yeah, I know what that means. But he then follows up with the next question to ask her, like, so who would you say knows you the best? And I love her response. And her response was, besides myself. And he was like, yeah, you can't use yourself as that. And she was like, well, I am, I study myself the best, or something like that. She said, I am my best study, or something to that effect. Something to basically say, like, I know myself the best because that's the subject that I study the most is myself, while you're studying other people. And if you don't know already, I am the shadow specialist. I help you to understand yourself better by understanding the things that make you tick. Yeah, yeah. So as Cam Newton started, preparing his next question, and I guess it was causing some comedy in his head. He started laughing, and she's like, "You're laughing at your own joke before you ask it," and he said, does that make me a narcissist? And she's like, you could tell she was holding back her tongue. She was like, well, that doesn't make you a narcissist. And the implication was there. He definitely picked up what she put down. That statement alone does not make you a narcissist, but the narcissistic tendencies are definitely there, right? And he was like, well, you insinuated that, laughing at my own joke doesn't make me a narcissist, but something else does. And she quickly came back and let him know that assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And he's like, yeah, everybody learned that in the fourth grade. He's feeling attacked. He can never be wrong because how dare you not acknowledge the fact that I perceive your insinuation of my narcissistic behavior? How dare you not validate that I was correct in my assumption? Well, because if I want to, I could, but I told you I would give my assessment of you off camera. But he couldn't stop there because he had to end the interview about Lady London with a question about himself. Why? Because he must be glorified. This is like the hallmark trait of narcissism, one of them, but it's also the hallmark trait of individuals that are operating at a low consciousness. All right? His last question to her was, so now what is your assessment of me? Because she already mentioned that she was a Cancer. She's very intuitive. She's in tune with her emotions, and she was still processing, even though I'm pretty sure she made him out within the first 5-7 minutes of the interview. But she was being gentle with his fragile ego, and she so eloquently articulated everything that she was thinking in her mind in a very ladylike way and said, Cam, you're like an onion. Oh, brilliant. Yes. She said you have layers to you, and it's 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 shielded by an exterior bravado and some ego, but I believe that you have a softer side to you that you don't want to be readily seen. There's a playful nature to you. Clock it, water sign sister. Yes, indeed. You are very much operating in a lower vibration. Your consciousness is stuck right in your childhood where you saw and witnessed many things that have led you to operate from your ego. Your style that you were not able to articulate eloquently or damn near at all is a reflection of your need to be seen. It is loud. It is chaotic. It is exactly a reflection of how you feel inside. Now, this interview was very hard to watch because it's sad that men who are operating at a lower frequency tend to attack and come after women to hopefully boost themselves up. Now, if you enjoyed this breakdown, if you learned how to identify when a low vibrational man is in your presence by being able to spot out their need to be glorified, okay, their inability to take accountability, or the fact that they may lie easily because they cannot take accountability, or even, what was the second thing? That they're rarely wrong, if ever. Hopefully, you are able to identify these things the next time you go out on a first date or in your current relationship. Low vibrational men will tell on themselves, whether it's directly or indirectly. If you've enjoyed this video, this content, go ahead and like the video, share it with a friend that you know is in these dating streets, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you are notified every time I drop a video. Until next time, endless love, y'all. Peace.